Good morning. Today's quote: education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Nelson Mandela. Today's articles: age of expansionism is over, PM says in Ladakh. ICMR looks at vaccine launched by August 15. Lessons for India: bend it like Italy. Avoid miscalculation, says China. First article: age of expansionism is over, PM says in Ladakh. India's resolve to protect its territory is as high as the Himalayas. Without referring to China directly, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said in Ladakh on Friday that the age of expansionism was over and the countries across the world were now witnessing the era of development. In a surprise visit to Ladakh, 17 days after Chinese troops killed 20 Jawans in Galwan Valley, the Prime Minister said India's determination to protect its territory was as high as the Himalayas. Mr. Modi's visit came after 3 rounds of talks between Indian and Chinese military commanders to end contentious and violent face-offs between their troops. There are also reports of both countries building up troop levels along the boundary even as the talks continue. Friends, the age of expansionism is over. This is the era of development. Whenever we have seen expansionist tendencies, these have spelled danger for world peace, he said, addressing troops in Nimmu, a short distance from Leh town. The Prime Minister, accompanied by Chief of the Defence Staff General Bipin Rawat and Army Chief General M.M. Naravane, told the troops that their services to Mother India were unmatched. Again, I pay my respects to the soldiers who were martyred in Galwan Valley, he said, stressing that the territory of Ladakh was symbolic of the self-respect of 130 crore Indians. Every citizen is proud of our bravery. Friends, everyone knows that the country, the world and humanity can only progress on the basis of peace and friendship, he said in his Hindi address. But we also know the peace cannot be ushered in by the weak. Only the brave can bring peace, he noted. Here is the picture, moral boost. PM Narendra Modi with Chief of Defence Staff General Bipin Rawat arriving in Leh on Friday. Pointing to the improvement in infrastructure along the border, something that the Chinese are believed to be concerned about, he said spending on the boundary had increased threefold. India's character was such that while it prayed to a flute playing Lord Krishna, it also prayed to his Sudarshan Chakra wielding avatar, he observed. Mr. Modi quoted Tamil philosopher Thiruvalluvar. Bravery, respect, dignified conduct and reliability are defining characteristics of any army. He also quoted the Buddha, courage is related to conviction, courage is mercy and compassion, courage is that which makes us stand on the side of truth and do that which is right. The Prime Minister made laudatory references to Rinpoche Kushok Bakula of Ladakh who, he said, helped foster nationalist sentiment in the area and who was the inspiration behind raising the Ladakh Scots Infantry Regiment. In the context of national security, I think of two mothers. One is Mother India and the second the brave mothers who have given birth to brave soldiers like you, he stated. Later, Mr. Modi visited the Leh Military Hospital and met the soldiers who were injured in the June 15 Galwan Valley clashes. He told them that those who laid down their lives didn't depart without reason and that they all gave a befitting reply. Second article: ICMR looks at vaccine launched by August 15. Clinicians differ. Covaxin has potential, but it is unlikely to be ready by that time. A vaccine for COVID-19 from India is unlikely to be ready for public use by August 15, but early data on whether it is safe and the proof of its working could be available by then, say clinicians involved with the trial. On July 2, Director General of the Indian Council of Medical Research (ICMR), Dr. Balram Bhargava sent out a letter asking officials at 12 hospitals across the country to expedite the vaccine testing process. The vaccine candidate called Covaxin has been developed by the Hyderabad-based Bharat Biotech India Limited (BBIL), which got approvals from the Drug Controller General of India on June 29 for the Phase 1 and Phase 2 trials. The trials are done on groups of people and are meant to test if the vaccine is safe on humans and produces protective antibodies. The potential vaccine in question is a SARS-CoV-2 strain sourced from the ICMR National Institute of Virology. However, a paragraph in Dr. Bhargava's letter suggested haste and presumption of the vaccine's protective abilities. It is emphasized to launch the vaccine latest by 15th August 2020 after completion of all clinical trials. BBIL is working expeditiously to meet the target. However, final outcome will depend on the cooperation of all clinical trial sites involved in this project. A scientist familiar with India's COVID-19 vaccine developed strategy but who did not wish to be identified said the vaccine had potential but it was overtly optimistic to expect it soon. This vaccine has much potential but is at early stages. To promise delivery on a month's timeline is overtly optimistic. In exhorting partners for preparedness, due process and trial site preparedness is also necessary, the scientist said. Though the letter wasn't officially released by the ICMR, the body confirmed its veracity. Two doctors who are leading trials at different locations told the Hindu they were awaiting clearances from their institutional ethics committees, a mandatory requirement to begin recruiting volunteers. Only after such clearance could they proceed with tests. We haven't yet begun recruitment but are in the process of awaiting institutional ethics clearance, said Dr. Vasudev, King George Hospital, Visakhapatnam, which is among the 12 sites. We need 100 to 150 recruits per center and by August 15 we should be able to get a sense of the safety, immunogenicity and possible efficacy. After 4 days, we are likely to get approval and begin recruitment. Another doctor said that each trial site posed its own unique challenges in sourcing patients and therefore it was possible for one center to finish phase 1 and phase 2 studies but for the others to lag behind. This was a common cause of delay in human trials. Were everything to go like clockwork, it's possible to confidently determine vaccine safety by August 15, said Dr. Venkata Rao, principal investigator and based at the Institution of Medical Sciences and SUM Hospital, Jaipur, Odisha. However, until now we weren't made aware of a specific timeline. Krishna Ella, President Bharat Biotech, has himself reportedly said a vaccine would be available in market only by next year. Third article in editorial page. Lessons for India. The Italian Marines case meets with a disappointing end as India loses right to trial. The long quest for justice for the two Kerala fishermen shot dead by Italian Marines from the Enrica Lake Sea about 20.5 nautical miles off India's coast in February 2012 has ended in disappointment. An international arbitration court has ruled that India does not have jurisdiction to try the Marines, who it held were entitled to immunity as they were acting on behalf of a state. The Permanent Court of Arbitration (PCA) in The Hague admitted that both India and Italy had concurrent jurisdiction in the matter but concluded that the Marines' immunity precluded India's jurisdiction. In India's favour, the PCA found that the Italian vessel had violated the right and freedom of navigation of the Indian fishing vessel under UNCLOS and that the action, which caused loss of lives, property and harm, merited compensation. It asked the parties to consult each other on the compensation due to India as a result. More significantly, the PCA rejected a key argument by Italy that India, by leading the Italian vessel into its territory and arresting the Marines, violated its obligation to cooperate with measures to suppress piracy under Article 100 of UNCLOS. This may mean that the arbitration court did not view the incident as one related to piracy at all. The incident had caused national outrage as the public saw these as wanton killings, inasmuch as the circumstances indicated no attempt by the fishing vessel at piracy. The fishing vessel was within the country's contagious zone, and it was quite clear that the offence warranted arrest and prosecution under domestic law. With the piracy angle ruled out, a regular trial was in order. The Union government should have taken over the prosecution and ensured a quick trial. However, as legal tangles were being sorted out and India was dealing with the diplomatic fallout, the Marines managed to obtain orders to leave the country. The Supreme Court ruled that only the centre and not Kerala can prosecute the Marines. A bigger legal issue which caused more delay came later. The National Investigation Agency invoked the Suppression of Unlawful Acts Against Safety of Maritime Navigation and Fixed Platforms on Continental Shelf Act 2002. This caused a diplomatic furore as it provides for the death penalty. The EU threatened to impose trade sanctions. Ultimately, it took time for these charges to be dropped. The PCS award, which is final and has been accepted by India, is a huge setback for the expectation that the two Marines would face a criminal trial in India. In the end, Italy succeeded in taking the matter out of India's hands. It should now make good on its commitment to have the Marines tried under its domestic laws. The takeaway for India should be the lessons in the legal and diplomatic domains that can be drawn from the experience. Bend it like Italy. India needs a comprehensive approach to the virus centered around wider testing. 5 months after WHO declared COVID-19 as a public health emergency of international concern and 3.5 months after it called the disease a pandemic, its spread does not seem to be slowing down globally. Instead, infections and the death toll continue to rise alarmingly. After a sharp increase in March, the fresh cases reported have steadily increased, breaching the 10 million mark on June 29. The death toll too touched a grim milestone of 0.5 million. With the addition of each million new cases taking fewer days than the previous one, the pandemic is truly accelerating. As if the summer heat has invigorated the virus, June alone accounted for 60% of all cases reported so far. The second half of June has been particularly bad with over 150,000 cases reported almost daily. On June 26, 0.19 million new cases were recorded. The highest reported on a single day since the outbreak in China, US 2.7 million, Brazil nearly 1.5 million and India 0.6 million have been driving the spike. On July 1st, the US witnessed the single largest spike of nearly 50,000 cases, which is more than the total number of cases reported by Singapore, South Korea and other countries. As on July 3, India has reported over 0.6 million cases and 18,662 deaths. The acceleration of fresh cases began in the first week of May and increased sharply in June. While Maharashtra has the most cases, infections in Tamil Nadu and Delhi have been steadily increasing. With over 92,000 cases, Delhi has surpassed Chennai nearly 85,000, while Mumbai just over 82,000 and Chennai 64,689 are close behind. After months of low testing, Delhi increased the number done per day to close to 20,000 with a concomitant increase in case to reach a peak of over 3,900 before falling by nearly 40% in the last few days. Though belated, Tamil Nadu began aggressively testing in hotspot areas in Chennai a fortnight ago. Moving from a smaller number of targeted tests to increased community testing about 2 weeks ago has led to the test positivity rate reducing from 35% to about 20% in certain areas in Chennai. A test positivity rate of about 20% is highly suggestive of community spread in these areas. Equally important is tracing and isolating contacts. Tamil Nadu, however, has the lowest case fatality rate of 1.3% compared with 4.4% in Maharashtra, 3.1% in Delhi, and 5.6% in Gujarat. It is important for every state to take a leaf out of Maharashtra's book and test large numbers daily, unmindful of the rise in fresh cases each day. Dithering on testing, tracing, isolating, and treating will inevitably lead to uncontrolled spread and increased deaths, undermining efforts to contain the pandemic. After all, China, Italy, and Spain have demonstrated that it is possible to bend the curve through a comprehensive approach that is centered around testing. Fifth article. Don't complicate situation. Beijing on Friday warned India against making a strategic miscalculation with regard to China. It also described Mr. Modi's comments on expansionism as being exaggerated and fabricated. The Chinese Foreign Ministry reacted to Mr. Modi's visit by saying India should not complicate the situation along the border. Embassy terms PM's comments on expansionism exaggerated and fabricated. China on Friday warned India against making a strategic miscalculation with regard to China. In a sharp reaction to Prime Minister Narendra Modi's surprise visit to Ladakh to meet Indian troops. China also described Mr. Modi's comments on expansionism as being exaggerated and fabricated. Underlying the tense state of relations, China has demarcated boundary with 12 of its 14 neighboring countries through peaceful negotiations, turning land borders into bonds of friendly cooperation. It's groundless to view China as expansionist, exaggerate and fabricate its disputes with neighbors. Jirong, the spokesperson of Chinese embassy in New Delhi, said in Twitter. Against complication. In Beijing, the Chinese Foreign Ministry reached to Mr. Modi's visit by saying India should not complicate the situation along the border. China and India are in communication with each other through military and diplomatic channels. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhao Lijian said at a daily press briefing when asked about the visit. Neither side should make any move that may complicate the border situation. Mr. Zhao warned India to avoid a strategic miscalculation with regard to China. I would like to stress that China hopes that India will work with us. Follow faithfully the important consensus reached between the two leaders, abide by the agreements reached between the two governments, strengthen communication and coordination on properly managing the current situation through diplomatic and military channels, and jointly uphold peace and stability in the border areas, he said. At the same time, we need to see that China and India, both major developing countries, bear the historic mission of accelerating national development and rejuvenation. The official said, China and India should follow the important consensus reached by the leaders of the two countries and uphold overall bilateral relations, he said. Mr. Legion also warned against artificial barriers that would hurt economic relations in reference to India's recent moves on the trade and investment front, from banning 59 Chinese apps to announcing a halt to highway projects. On Minister for Road Transport and Highways Nitin Gadkari's remarks on July 1 to keep Chinese firms away from highway projects, Mr. Zhao said, in recent days, some politicians in India have kept issuing irresponsible remarks that are detrimental to China-India relations. It calls for concerted efforts on both sides to maintain China-India relations. Artificially setting up barriers for such cooperation not only violates WTO rules but also hurts India's interest. He said China would take all necessary measures to safeguard the legitimate rights of Chinese businesses. Here is the picture checking up Prime Minister Narendra Modi visiting soldiers at a military hospital in Leh on Friday. Thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe to my channel.